Welcome to Reformed Thinking. Today, we are getting into a really challenging sermon from Jonathan Edwards, The End of the Wicked Contemplated by the Righteous. And believe me, this text makes us face some pretty tough ideas about divine justice and what eternity is all about. Okay, so the sermon's whole argument hangs on this startling proposition. Edwards is setting out to demonstrate that when the saints in heaven see God's wrath poured out on the ungodly, it won't cause them any sadness. Instead, they will rejoice. So, how does he get there? Let's break it down.
To really wrap our minds around this, we have to first understand the specific judgment that Edwards is even talking about. It's all rooted in the book of Revelation and focuses on the fall of this one powerful symbolic figure. And that figure is called Babylon. Now, Edwards identifies Babylon as the antichristian, idolatrous church. This isn't just talking about some ancient city. It's a spiritual power that represents organized opposition to the true church of Christ.
I mean, the language used in Revelation 18 is just absolute. It's vivid. Babylon is fallen, it becomes a place for devils, it's completely burned with fire, and its smoke goes up forever. The point here is that this is not some temporary defeat. It's total, final, and eternal destruction.
So, Edwards describes this whole thing as happening in two parts, a visible destruction here on earth, and then an eternal punishment in the life to come. But that brings up a really big question. Who is actually doing the judging? And the answer looks a lot like a divine courtroom.
The sermon gives us a very clear judicial setup. You've got God the Father as the ultimate authority. Then Jesus Christ is the supreme judge who actually pronounces the final sentence. But here's the detail that's key to the whole argument. The saints themselves are there as assessors, confirming that the judgment is absolutely just. You see, this role for the saints, it shows this complete unity of mind and purpose in heaven. They are not just sitting on the sidelines watching things happen. And this leads us right back to the central point of the sermon. Why on earth would they rejoice at something so terrifying? Well, Edwards gives us a few reasons. The first one is that the saints will rejoice because they get to see the perfect justice of God glorified. They'll finally see that the punishment is exactly what divine justice requires, and this makes God appear, in his words, amiable and adorable in his perfect righteousness. The second reason is that they rejoice to see the power and majesty of God on full display. Seeing God's enemies destroyed shows his incredible greatness, that he is truly above his enemies. And the third reason? It actually increases their own happiness. By seeing the horrible misery that they themselves were saved from, their thankfulness for God's sovereign grace and for the love of Christ just skyrockets. Now, Edwards is really careful to add a critical point here. He makes it absolutely clear that this joy doesn't come from a bad place, like personal hatred or cruelty. No, this joy flows from perfect holiness and being in complete agreement with God's will. Of course, this whole idea brings up a pretty obvious objection, right? And Edwards sees it coming. If we as Christians are told to love our enemies, how can we possibly rejoice in their destruction? He answers this by drawing a really sharp line between our duty here on earth and the reality of heaven. Down here on earth, Christians have to pray for the wicked. Why? Because their eternal state isn't sealed yet. They can still receive mercy. But in heaven, the saints will be in perfect lockstep with God's declared will. And the damned, well, they are no longer subjects of mercy. Their condition is fixed for eternity. Edwards doesn't just leave this as some abstract theological idea. He finishes the sermon by turning to the ungodly people in his own congregation with a direct, personal warning. He completely flips the perspective around and asks his listeners this piercing question. If this is what heaven is like, if the saints are rejoicing in God's perfect justice, how will you, an ungodly person, be able to stand it? And he makes it incredibly personal by spelling out exactly who will be rejoicing. He's not talking about strangers. He lists godly parents, the pastors who warned you, the Christian neighbors you knew, the very same people who, on earth, prayed for your soul. The very people who showed you such tender concern in this life will, in heaven, fully approve of the righteous sentence against you. Edwards really drives it home, asking how you could possibly bear to see them shouting praises to God because of your just condemnation. It's a staggering thought that leaves you with the full weight of this view of divine justice, something glorious for the saved and absolutely terrifying for the unrepentant.